Now we can begin. Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Chof Ba, being Sibis is willing for Fur Shlema, for Yosef Israel ben Chai Michal, and for Elosa ben Reuma. Yesterday we got down to the 8th line on the page, near the last word on the line, Tanya, Shem Lazar Omer. Tanya Shem Lazar, Shem Shetrum Chazaka Lakuna, Kachmas Rishon Chazaka Lakuna. Just like if a person has been given truma, and he was portioned out, let's say at the distribution center, he got truma, that's a chazaka that he's a kohen. And we didn't determine whether if he's given truma, we didn't determine whether Messias Kapayim is enough of a chazaka that you could marry him off to the proper family, and it's for his lineage. But it's a chazaka. But if he's given truma, if it's truma d'oraisa, it's a chazaka that he's a kohen. The Gemara here doesn't tell you chazaka in what sense. Does it mean for marriage or for whatever? But we know that he's a kohen. It's good enough for that. But we don't know that it's good enough to confirm his lineage. We discussed that if the question was shtaros, or if Messias Kapayim is. We couldn't prove it one way or another. But it's a chazaka, at least that he's a kohen. You could certainly give him an aliyah. You could certainly, if you got truma, perhaps if you got truma with chazaka, that you give him challah. So the same way, just like giving truma is a chazaka, so is ma'aser rishon. Kach ma'aser rishon chazaka. What do you mean ma'aser rishon? Ma'aser rishon goes to the Levi, not to the kohen. Why is that a chazaka? Pardon? Yeah, ma'aser and ma'aser, but not ma'aser rishon. Ma'aser and ma'aser, that's called trumas ma'aser. Ma'aser and ma'aser, that goes to the kohen. But ma'aser rishon, why is that a chazaka b'kuna? And then that's one thing that he said. And Shmuel also says that just like truma is a chazaka, that the guy is a kohen. If you got truma, you can assume he's a kohen. You can eat challah, maybe even for lineage. So the same way truma that ma'aser rishon is also a chazaka. And then before we get to that problem. This is a cholik to Bezdin. If Bezdin gave him the truma, ain't a chazaka. That's not a chazaka. So what do you mean? If Bezdin confirmed that he's getting truma, why is that not a chazaka? If Bezdin it's not a chazaka, where is it a chazaka? That's the question. So there's two problems with this brisa of Shimon Elazar. Now we're going to analyze ma'aser rishon. The Gemara says right away, ma'aser rishon leviu. How do I understand if you get truma, that's the chazaka, you're a kohen. But if you get ma'aser rishon, why is that a chazaka? You're a kohen. Ma'aser rishon goes to the Levi. The answer is Kabbalah Azariah. The Tanya truma the kohen. Ma'aser rishon the Levi. The Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva holds like we always know. The truma goes to the kohen. Ma'aser rishon goes to the Levi. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. Kabbalah Azariah. No, ma'aser rishon not for kohen. Ma'aser rishon go to a kohen or Levi. Don't forget, kohen's also in the tribe of the Levi. The kedushas and Levi. Says ma'aser rishon now also goes to the kohen. Ma'aser rishon also goes to the kohen. Okay. So the Gemara says, kohen. You can go to, because Cohen's also a kind of a Levi, right? He's in the tribe of the Levi. But Rav Lezer is adding on to Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says, ma'aser rishon only goes to Levi. But Buzman says, I can get a Cohen or Levi, after Cohen. Go to Cohen. So, but if you give it to him, how's that a proof? If you give ma'aser rishon to somebody, how's that a proof that he's a Cohen? Buzman seems to say, you can give ma'aser rishon to Levi or to the Cohen. Fine. Okay, give it to the Levi or to the Cohen. But if you give it to some Ploni Almoni, you give it to him, how's that a proof that he's a Cohen? Maybe he's a Levi. The Ezra gave a fine to the Levium for not being Ola with him, not coming back to Eretz Yisrael from Babel, and there he fined him and he took away ma'aser rishon from the Levium and he gave it to the Kohen. So after the time of Ezra, who got the ma'aser rishon? Only Kohanim, not Levium. So then it's a proof that he's a Kohen. But Dilma Ikru B'Yovel, okay, fine. You're right. He gave a kanas that you're supposed to give your ma'aser rishon to the kohen, not to the Levi. But there may be people who didn't hear it or they made a mistake and they said, I always gave it to the Levi. I'll give it to Levi now. How is that a proof that he's a kohen? You're trying to say if somebody got ma'aser rishon, if he was distributed ma'aser rishon, that's proof that he's a kohen. It could be a Levi. Even if you say that there was a kanas and fine, you gave it to him, but maybe you gave it to Levi. That's not a solid proof that somebody got ma'aser. If somebody was given truma, that's a sign that he's a kohen. But if somebody was given ma'aser rishon, how is that for sure that he's a kohen? We're only talking a very limited case. You're right. Normally, if you get ma'aser rishon, that's not a solid proof that you're a kohen. Here we're talking about a specific case. What's the case here? If you're going, we know this guy's father was a kohen. He's certainly not a Levi or Yisrael. We know he was a kohen. But enough of a call, and then a rumor went out A rumor could be even one person, anybody, just a rumor. It's not proof. It's not solid proof. It's not edus, but it's called ba'am like Rashi's below edus. It's not edus. But rumor went out that his mother was a grusha chalutza and he's a halal. Okay. Therefore what? He's not going to get truma. But the chilkulo l'didei meiser b'basic runners, and they gave him meiser. Okay, they gave him meiser. Now, what does that prove? Levi, the Lav Levi, he's certainly not a Levi. You can't say, well, meiser she goes to the Kohen or to the Levi, so maybe he's a Levi. He's not a Levi. His father was a Kohen. Michael, and what are you going to say? Ben Grusha ben Chalutzu. So what do you say? So what? If he's not a Levi, what is he? Ben Grusha Chalutzu. Let me boy leman domer meiser rishon also zarim. Even if you hold that meiser rishon cannot beat meiser, we hold meiser rishon can. If a meiser rishon goes to the Levi and he invites you to his house for a meal on Shabbos, you're allowed to eat it, right? Certainly the one who holds meiser rishon. That others say that it cannot be eaten by a zar, by a non-Levi. Certainly, Lomi boy, certainly the one who says meiser rishon is also zarim, he wouldn't give it to him unless he knew he was a Kohen. He's not a Levi, right? He's not a Levi for sure. The question is, he ben Grushim and Chalutza? Well, ben Grushim and Chalutza is not a kosher Levi. It doesn't go down before she say just because the guy's a Kohen and now he's a halal ben Grushim doesn't go down to a Levi. A Levi has its own kedusha. They're both from the tribe. The fact they're from the tribe doesn't mean that he has a kedusha. If he's a ben Grushim and Chalutza, he's just a puzzle person. So certainly the one who holds meiser rishon is also Lazarim. He's certainly a zar. He's a halal. If he was a ben Grushim and Chalutza. Even if you hold that a zor is allowed to eat meiser rishon, Israel could eat meiser rishon. You can supply him. You can give him some. Invite him to your house. You give him some. They wouldn't give it to him. They wouldn't distribute to him as a proper Levi or a proper Kohen. And therefore, this guy had a rumor that he's a ben Grushim and Chalutza. But the fact that they gave him a distribution of meiser rishon shows that he's not a ben Grushim and Chalutza. He's a proper Kohen. Maybe he's a Levi. He's not a Levi because we know his father was a Kohen. So that's what we're talking about, a specific case here. So normally, if you just see some Ploni Almoni getting Truma, that's a proof that he's a Kohen. How far is that a proof? Maybe for lineage, we're not sure, but he's a Kohen. You can rest assured he's a Kohen. He can duchen, give him a first aliyah, you give him bench first, all that stuff. You treat him like a Kohen. If he was given Meiser Rishon after the time of that Ezra constant the Levim and took it away from them, it's likely that he's a Kohen, but he's not for sure that he's a Kohen. Could be a Levi. Over here, is speaking about a specific case where you know the guy's father was a Kohen. The only question is he ben Grushim and Chalutza? Is he halal? The fact that they distributed to him, that's what Rav Shimon Lazar meant in the Brisa. Shimon Lazar, it's a chazak if you know his father's a Kohen. If you know his father's a Kohen, and the only question is he a halal or not? Was his mother a grusha or a chalutza? That's good enough. Okay, that's the first part. Then he said b'cholik based in chazaka. If he got distribution by a bezdin, it's not a chazaka that he's a Kohen. Even bezdin chazaka. If bezdin themselves does the chalukah, does the distribution, and they confirm it, if that's not a chazaka that he's a Kohen, what is? Right? If bezdin's doing it, why is that not a chazaka? He says v'chazaka. That's what Rav Shapiro said. The cholik bezdin ain't a chazaka. If you get a chalukah in the bezdin, it's not a chazaka. Apparently, even if we're talking about truma, it's not a chazaka. Means a cholik truma b'nechsei. Here we're not talking about meiser rishon, even truma. A cholik truma b'nechsei of im echav b'bezdin ain't a chazaka. The fact that a person, here's what happened: a father died, a Kohen died. Okay, now we're not talking about distributing truma from the farmers and everybody has truma and they were giving it at the distribution center. We're talking about a probate. We're talking about a man died and he left a few sons, and he's a Kohen, and now they're dividing up his nechasim. Okay, there's some proof. The fact that you divide up the nechasim, and among his nechasim, among his assets, there is truma, and you give it to all the sons. Is that a proof that all the sons are proper kohanim, and that one of them is not, one or two is not a halal? Is that a proof? No, they're just getting Yerush over here. They're not getting the truma, the Torah's being machalik to a Kohen, like a person who gives his truma to the Kohen. They're dividing up an estate. And they says that's not a proof. That's what it means. It's not a chazaka because it could be he's just getting a distribution. Is it prohibited for anybody to have truma in their possession? If I'm a farmer and I'm a Yisrael and I separate off the truma and it's in my possession, I'm going to give it to a Kohen, but right now it's still in my possession. There's no prohibition on one of the Yorshim to get some truma from his father, even if he's a Kohen, even if he's an improper Kohen, he can't eat it. Just Pshit, isn't that obvious? You might say, well, since these guys can eat it, everybody can. When Bezin is distributing the truma as the assets of the estate to the various Yorshim, you might think since these guys can eat it, the other guys can eat it too. That's what Bezin is trying to do. No, these guys who are proper Kohanim, if they're the sons who are proper Kohanim, they can eat it. The other ones is they're getting it. The other one who was, let's say, a Ben Grushim Bechluz, he's an improper Kohen. He can't eat the truma. He's a halal. He's gonna have to sell his off. Just like you could sell it. It's possible to deal in truma, right? Let's say a Kohen has some truma, and he doesn't want to eat. He needs desperate for money, and he sells the truma to a Yisrael. He sells the truma to Yisrael. Yisrael could buy it at some reduced cost. It's not worth as much on the market as regular chulin because it's got a smaller market. It can only be eaten by Kohanim, right? So he could sell it to this guy, and this guy could sell it to Kohanim in some other place, right? It's not prohibited to own truma. It's prohibited to eat truma if you're not a Kohen. So here too, the fact that the Yorish got some truma from his father, who was a Kohen, does that prove, even if Bezin gave it to him, doesn't prove that he's a proper Kohen? Oh, Bezin gave him the truma. No, Bezin was just distributing the father's estates. It's not the same as being machalik truma to Kohanim at the distribution center. That would prove that they're Kohanim. So we had a machlokas in the Mishnah. Mishnah said like this. Two guys come up, and two guys show up in Bezin. One guy says, I'm a Kohen, and Omer Kohen, and there's Omer Kohen, and they're not believed. It was much. If each one says, I testify the other guy's a Kohen, he is believed. Okay, each one says something. You're not worried about it. If he says, no, we don't raise a person and say that he's a Kohen based on the testimony of one. That's what Yehuda said. Amar Blazer, that's only Bisman Shisha, that's only if there's objections. There's a dispute. Somebody appeals it to say, no, he's not a Kohen. I know he's not a Kohen. But if there's nobody complaining, even 1/8 is good enough. That's what Reb Blazer says. And Shmuel says plain. Apparently they say the same thing. Reb Blazer says that if there's an objection, then we don't consider him a Kohen based on the testimony of 1/8. But if there's no objection, we agree. Then 1/8 is good enough to establish this person as a Kohen. Shmuel says Shmuel Malachi plain al pi erecha. So the Gemara says the Chorah is saying the same thing. Shmuel Hein Reb Blazer, because we're assuming that even Shmuel would not say that 1/8 is believed in a case where there's Orin. Shmuel Hein Reb Blazer Chitema, right? Rashi says. Shmuel Hein Reb Blazer Davadi Makom Sheish Orin Lo Omer Shmuel not say Havichad Neman. Probably when there's no objections. When there's an objection, who would say that 1/8 is believed if there's an objection? So the same thing. Maybe here's the discussion. If the objection, right? There's one person who's objecting and saying that no, I think he's not a Kohen, right? He's challenging the situation, right? The guy comes, somebody says he's a Kohen, and then someone says no, I know he's not a Kohen. He's challenging that. So maybe the machlokas is if there's only one challenge, one person is challenging, right? Maybe that's the machlokas here. Reb Eliezer Savar here he says Reb Eliezer, and our Mishnah says it as Reb Eliezer, right? As Reb Eliezer is the girsa. We have a girsa Reb Eliezer. Don't change that. Okay, maybe it changed. It's probably a mistake on one of them. The Reb Eliezer Savar Irachat. He says if one complains, that's good enough. If one objects in challenging his kahuna status, that's good enough. And therefore we don't believe him. Shmuel Savar ear tray. You need an ear tray. Rabbi Yochanan said, everybody agrees. Ain't ear pach m'shnayim. There's no such thing as a proper objection or appeal unless it's two people. One person can make a call, can make a rumor, but that's not a proper objection. So everybody says you need an ear or two. And it's not likely that Shimon Gamliel would say, even when the two people are saying that he's not a Kohen, that 1/8 would be believed that he is. So what's the difference between Shimon Gamliel and Reb Eliezer? Okay, well, it's between the two of them. So Elach Ma'askinan, if it's Reb Eliezer, it's Reb Eliezer ben Hirkanis. If it's Reb Eliezer, it's Reb Eliezer ben Ara. Okay, Elach Ma'askinan, the Muslim Avu at the High Kohen. Again, we're talking a very limited case. What's the case over here? We know his father was a Kohen. But there was a rumor went out. Here's the problem. Right? They're both agreeing apparently that if somebody comes along and says, "Oh, this guy he just showed up in shul. I know he's a Kohen." That's good enough. And if Two people said no, challenged and said he's not a Kohen. Why would one person be believed? People said he's not a Kohen. Here it's speaking about where we know the father was a Kohen. A rumor went out that he's a Ben Grushim and Chalutza. Therefore, he's not a proper Kohen. He's a Halal. And they removed him from being a Kohen. Can't have a Kohen. We're not giving him an Aliyah anymore as Kohen. Then one aide came. It was only right. What happened was we know his father was a Kohen. A rumor went out. Just a rumor. Not Aedis, Rashi says. Somebody was talking. People were talking in the street. There was a rumor that he was Ben Grushim. So they said, well, then we're not going to let him be a Kohen. But one aide came along and said that I know that he is a proper Kohen, the Askan aide. And they reinstated him. They put him back up and said, Kohen, well, I got an aide, right? Basabay Trey, two guys came along and said Ben Grushim. Now two guys came along and said he's not a proper Kohen, Ben Grushim. Now they removed him again. The Bezin removed him again. They removed him the first time based on the rumor, and the second time based on two aidim. But also now another aide came. First one aide came in his defense, right? After to retract the rumor, right? And they put him back up. But then two people came along and said he's not, so they took him down a second time. Once based on the rumor, one based on two aidim. Now another aide came and said, so at the end of the day, we have two against two, right? Two aidim say he's good, two aidim say he's not good. We're assuming that everybody holds mitzvah from Aedis. That Aedis, when they come along to testify something, they don't have to come together. One could come today, one could come tomorrow. We assume now that that's okay. The machlokas is, are we concerned about the status of Bezdin? That Bezdin will be held in contempt if they keep changing their mind. You removed them once, you removed them twice, and now you're going to put them back up again. What is the Bezdin worth? People will hold it in contempt. Tanakama said, we keep it achsen ela maskinale. Rabbi Lezer says once you put him down twice, we're not going to put him back up. Chashin is the best. We're concerned about people who hold Bezdin in contempt. You know, Bezdin holds people in contempt. People who hold Bezdin. People will make light of Bezdin and say, what is Bezdin? They take him down twice and they put him back up. Shmuel said, no. We took him down. We took him up. We're not concerned about that. Bezdin has to judge based on what the Aedis comes in front of them. First, there was a rumor, we took him down. Then there was one aide, put him back up. Then there was two aidim against, took him down. Then another aide came along and put him up. We got two aidim, we're going to put him. Why? What about if it's two against two? Why do we consider him a Kohen? Because he had a previous chazaka. He was a Kohen. He was born into a Kuna family. So if it's based on two against two, go best the chazaka. In other words, when there's not a proper Oren because we put him back up on the original chazaka. The chazaka, not just that he was born a Kohen, but that one aide came along when there was no other aide and one came put him up, says Rashi. So he had a chazaka based on one. So that's the machlokas maybe over here. In other words, they're both saying you believe one aide to say that he's a Kohen. The question over here was when there's two aidim against him, two aidim saying that he's not a Kohen. And yet one aide said before in his favor and one aide said afterwards. The question is, do we play around, go back and forth? So Rav Lezer says what? Rav Lezer says, no, you can't. We're worried about the contempt of Bezdin. And if there was Oren in this sense, two people against him, even if two people were four, we're not going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so Rav Shapiro says, no, we don't care about that. We took him down. We know it's two against two. We go with the original chazak. Why do you have to, if the concern is about Zilus of the Bezdin, even if it wasn't one in favor and then two against, then one in favor. Even if two people came in favor afterwards, right? It was two or two, not a question of one before, then two, then one. Even if you had two against and then two for, you don't have to talk about one the two aidim in favor were separate. They both came together also. If the problem is he lucid the Bezdin, bless us, we don't want to take. We took him down once on the rumor, then we took him down because of the two aidim who were against him. So if you're worried about lucid Bezdin, even if the two people came together, Elam Rav Ashi, when it starts from latest commitment, machlokes is do you add aidas together if they don't come at the same time. We look down into tonight. We find machlokes, famous machlokes we have in Sanhedrin and other places. The Tanya Einus Musavas Yishem Kechad. First, there's two machlokes in the road. First machlokes is not this first machlokes is not what we're not going to key in on that. But the first machlokes is the two people have to see the transaction at the same time. The aides have to see the transaction at the same time. Let's say one aide says, I saw Reuben lend Shimon $100. And another aide says, I came in there later and I saw that Shimon agreed, he's motive that he owes him $100. That's not aides according to this Tanakh. Tanya, they both have to see the same transaction, the same murder, the same thing at the same time. If like with a murder also, it's like that. Well, one guy said, I was in this window and I saw him. Another guy said, well, I was looking somewhere else. No, if you didn't see it together at the same time, that's not Eidus according to the Tanakama. No, they don't have to see it together. Even if they saw it separately, that's also okay. That's one machlokas. Then that's when, in terms of the Edom seeing what they saw, the story that they're testifying to, the narrative that they're testifying to, they had to see together. They had to be standing there together. The second machlokas, which is what we're talking about, is Einidus Miskayim as Beznat Shishnem Yachad. The two Edom who come to testify in Bezdin about what they saw, they have to come in together. They can't come in one day, one on Monday, and one on Tuesday. That's the Tanakh. No, you can hear him on even separate days. You listen to one today and one the next day when the guy comes in. And Rashi, the last Rashi before the Mishnah says, even if they saw it at the same time, they have to come to testify together. It's a different machlok, not the same as machlok. It's rather it's the first sheet of the Rabbanan and Rav Nasan. And then he ends off before the Mishnah, Rav Lazar, Rav Shimon, but looked at the Rav Nasan Rabbanan. Rav Lazar, Rav Shimon is the machlokas between Rav Nasan and Rabbanan. Rav Lazar holds like the Rabbanan who say what? That if they don't come in together, we can't add up their Eidos. So over here, what happened? There was a rumor, they took him down. 1 came along and said he's a good Kohen. We put him back up. 2 came and saw him, he's not a good Kohen. He's a Ben Gushim Chalutza. And then one other 8 came the next day and said he is good. So we're not mitzdarif, the Tanakh Rav Lazar, we're not mitzdarif the first guy with the second 8. Therefore, you have 2 Eidos who say he's no good, and that's it. Therefore, he's not a good Kohen. But and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, as Rav Shimon Gamliel, Rav Shimon Askan, who says we do accept it. He goes, yeah, we accept the Eidos of one today and one tomorrow. He'll go like Rav Nasan, this last sheet before the Mishnah. Rav Nasan, Rav Hayomi. So in the Mishnah, when the Mishnah says you leave 1 8 is good enough, and Rav Lazar says they both agree if there's 2 Edom are against him, you don't believe 1 8. Here it's speaking about where you have 2 Edom who say that he's good. That's the machlokas. The machlokas is not the way we see it in the Mishnah. 1 8 is believed when there's no complaint, there's no challenge to his status. But if there's a challenge, then we have a different machlokas. That the Rav Lazar says the Edom who come to confirm that he is a good Kohen must show up together. They must testify together according to the Tanakh, according to Rav Lazar. From Shemlil, they could show up in 2 different days. A woman was taken captive by the Goyim. She was kidnapped. Imprisoned. Moment, if they're trying to get money out of the Jews, they're kidnapped for money, then Mutaras Labala, after she was freed, you can assume she's okay for her husband, even if her husband was a Kohen, because you assume that they wouldn't violate her. Why? Because they don't want to ruin their money. In other words, the guy will pay, so if you don't touch her, I'll pay the $100,000. But if somebody messed with her, the Kohen can't marry, maybe you won't pay so much anymore. So if it's for money, it's just about Aida and Afashas, but if they're coming to kill her, right? So we're talking about cases where the husband was killed, so they used to kill the wife too. Then even if she's later on miraculously she gets freed, or they free her, they send in the troops and they free her, she's also to her husband. Why? Because once they're gonna kill her, they'll do whatever they want with her, and we're afraid. So if it's a Kohen, we're afraid that they raped her. And if it's an Eishes Yisrael, before we're talking about some states only talk about a Kohen, some states even talk about Eishes Yisrael. And the concern is that like Rashi learns, maybe she agreed to it. In other words, maybe she agreed to it. They said, listen, if you let us sleep with you willingly, maybe we'll free you. So maybe she agreed to it, and then she would be also to her husband too. This goes back to the Tosas and back in the first parak about if a woman has deal with a goy, is she then also to her husband in a case where she's not a Kohen? But where she's not a Kohen, that's a famous Tosas. The Tosas on Gimel Pei has that discussion about that. But here it's mashbet that Rashi that if she would have agreed willingly to the goy, then she'd be also to her husband. So that's a shiloh over here. If she was taken for money, then you assume she's mutter her husband because they wouldn't mess with her. If they were going to kill her, then we assume that they messed with her. That's only when the Jews are in power. The Jews have governance and over the goyim. Then, if it's only for money, there's some bad guys are kidnapping her. We assume that they wouldn't mess with her because they don't want to lose their chance of getting paid the ransom. But if the goyim have power over us, alatzman doesn't mean like on the cells probably a lashon like or like on us. So we say they have power over themselves, meaning if they're in charge, after them Rav Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak says, then even if it's for money, because they don't care, because they can do what they want, because they're empowered. That's how it was when we lived under the goyim. It's hard for kids today to understand what it was like when you lived under a foreign domination of goyim and they did what they wanted to the Jews. But that's what it was like. That's about Masav Rava. Hey, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, Rabbi Zechariah ben Akatzav, these two rabbis, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, Rabbi Zechariah, his father was a butcher, I guess. He would be called Shochet or Shochet man today or something like that, or Katzav in Hebrew. Abbas Yisrael Shurna B'Shan. There was a story with Abbas Yisrael who was given as a pledge. Some Jews owed money to the goyim. Ashkelon was a city, was mostly goyim, and the Jews said, "Okay, take the girl, and we'll pay you back in 10 days, and you can hold our daughter in as a mashkin." And after she was returned, nobody wanted to touch her. They didn't want to stay with her. They said, "No, she was probably abused." They there and their Adam, she went chaperoned. They gave her to the goyim, and they sent two Adam to be chaperones to testify. They were with her the whole time, and she wasn't secluded with them. She was on nitma. Chacham said, "Listen, peshas or pesheter. Sure, and if you believe that she was actually given as a pledge, no, the Adam were saying the Adam went the whole time and said, how do you know she was taken as a pledge? Because the Adam saw it. Well, the Adam also saw that she was untouched. Don't believe that. Don't believe that she was taken in, that she was given as a pledge. Whereas if you have to believe the Adam. So the Chacham said she's fine. Now, what's the story about Ashkelon? You have to come to Atzman. Ashkelon was a city, was mostly goyim. There it's Plishtim, Rashi says. Ashkelon was an Eretz Plishtim. Ba'od Kfar Gol Yisrael. We were already been exiled. So the Adam who testified that she was given as a pledge also testified that she's clean. And this is a city which is mostly goyim. The Ketani Hurhana, we said she was given as a pledge. She was given as a pledge willingly to Midas, even the Giyazman, since the time came and she wasn't redeemed in that time that she was supposed to, she belongs to Harei Shalav Chavam B'Dineim. According to their laws, okay, we're entitled to take the girl. That's why you need Adam, says Rashi. In other words, this is a city with mostly goyim, where the goyim are in charge. It's Eretz Plishtim, and we were already in Golos, so they're in charge. And yet we say that what's the reason why she's free to go, why she's free to marry, and we consider her untouched? Because there's Adam. And why? Because we gave her as a pledge, right? We gave her as a pledge, and as a pledge, that means to say if we don't redeem her in time, you're entitled to her. So because of that, and the goyim would be entitled to her, we need Adam. By Hornain, nich b'shalo. But if she was just taken in prison, then let's let if she was kidnapped, right? They were trying to kidnap her to get a ransom or something like that. It's mashma only because legitimately they took her. She was given to them, and that's why you need Adam. But it's mashma nich b'shalo that if she was kidnapped, then you wouldn't need Adam. Here, and what did Rav Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak say in the name of Rav? He said, no, if the goyim are in charge, even if it's just for money, you can't trust them. It's mashma over here only because they were entitled to take her. That's why you need Adam. But if she was kidnapped, they weren't entitled to her. Lo, you wouldn't need the Adam for that. That's what we're assuming. Then Nechasam, lo binin Adam, halvei dem mammon. So Sakasha, you said that if it's for money, you never trust them. Here it's mashma that if she was kidnapped for money, then you don't need Adam to prove that she wasn't touched. Gemara says, lo, who not feeling it doesn't make any difference if she was given as a pledge or kidnapped. That was the story over here. The story over there was that she was given as a pledge. And the rabbi said, listen, there's Adam that she's clean, so it's okay. It doesn't mean to say that if she wasn't given as a pledge, but she was kidnapped, that you wouldn't need Adam. You would need Adam either way. Some say that Rabbi didn't ask us a kasha, but rather he brought it as a proof to what Rav Shmuel Yitzchak said in the name of Rav, that what if the Adam are in charge, if the goyim are in charge, then even if they took it for money, you can't trust them, and you assume that she was violated. The same story. She was given as a pledge in Ashkelon, and after she was released, her family stayed away from her, claiming that she was probably violated. And there's the Adam who proved, there are chaperones who prove, proper Adam who proved that she wasn't violated. And if you believe them, what? That she was taken in, that she was given over to the goyim as a pledge. So I mean, then believe also that she wasn't violated. They may not meet him. If you don't believe if you don't believe that she wasn't violated, ultimately, how do you know that she was given as a pledge? Now, for Ashkelon, Ashkelon is the only place taken for money. Here's his proof. His proof it was for money. They were kidnapping her for money. They weren't kidnapping her. They took it as a pledge. We're going to keep the girl until you pay us. The time of the Adam Eidnosa. The only reason it's clean is because what? Because Adam tell him, ain't Adam Eidnosa. If there's no Adam, not with my love. Loshno or no loshno, which apparently doesn't make any difference. The proof is that was her and that was when she was given as a pledge. But the same thing would be in our mission where she was kidnapped. That if there's no Adam, you assume she was violated. Where our Mishnah said if it's for money, you assume she wasn't violated. But Rav said in the Gemara, based on what Shmuel Bar Yitzchak and Rav said, that if the guy were in charge, even if it's for money, they could violate her. So we're assuming that too. My love, loshna or loshna nichbasha, whether she was given as a pledge or whether she was kidnapped. Either way, if there's no Adam and if the goyim are in charge, we assume she was violated. It's slow. Or in a shot, it could be there was different with pledge because the goyim felt entitled to her because according to their law, you didn't redeem her within the 10 days, and then they're entitled to keep her. Therefore, you need Adam. But it could very well be if she was kidnapped and she wasn't given as a pledge. Maybe even without Adam, you would not assume she was violated even among the goyim. So it's no proof to Rav. Remember, some say it had nothing to do with Rav saying anything, which is a kasha from the mission itself. The mission says like if she was kidnapped for money, then you assume they don't want to hurt her because they might lose their money. They won't get as much kidnapping money back. Ransom, they won't get paid the ransom. So she's mutter to her husband. Again, as we said, even Ashes Cohen, you assume she wasn't violated at all. And if you're talking about Ashes Yisrael, that she didn't do it willingly. For a minute, hey, Rebbe, the story over here says Ashkelon, the whole story with where they were redeemed and the family didn't want to accept her, and the Adam and the Rabbanan said to him, "Pesha so pesha hitzer of Ashkelon, it was for money, right? They were ransomed for money. Viktani time the Adam Eden no saw it's mashkin. Since the Adam say she was clean, that's why she's clean. Eden no saw. But if there's no Adam in fact, she wouldn't be believed. So it's against the mission. The mission said that if it's for money, you can trust that she wasn't violated. Mishani, the answers are Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak, that Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak is answering the steer between the Mishnah and the stories. Lokasha kanche Yisrael Kipa, I did come kanche the come to Kifa Asman. Our Mishnah is speaking about where the Jews are in charge. So then they're not going to take a chance and ruin their ransom request by violating the girl. And the story over there was speaking about where the goyim were in charge over themselves or over us, meaning where they could do what they want. So you say, if she was taken and presumably they were going to kill her, then you assume they would have done whatever they want to. Amarav could go nashigande, like the wives were going up. The robbers were killed, and when the robbers were hung, the minig was that the derech hamalchus lahafkir beitam and Hashem, that they would confiscate the women and their assets and everything, and they would do what they want with the women. So in a case like that, they were going to do what they want with the women. So you assume they would have raped her too. The Levi Amakonish shall Ben Denai. There was a famous murderer called Ben Denai. Ben Denai, his name was Elazar Ben Denai. Rashi says, in other words, it's only if it's a murderer. For murderers taken out to be killed, then they're confiscate the wife and they do what they want. But if it was them Ganavim, they're not mafka their money. And as for Ganavim, they don't confiscate the women or do whatever they want with them. That's only if they were actually sentenced to death. So the husband was sentenced to death, or the women were dinan lahariga, that they were going to kill the women. Even if they were going to kill them, even if there was no sentence, the same thing still applies. That if the goyim were not just trying to ransom her, to kidnap her to get a ransom, but they were trying to, they took her because they killed the husband and they could do what they want with the wife. Then you assume the woman was also tamim. And if she was married to a Kohen and she got out despite all that, you assume that she that maybe she did it willingly, and therefore she'd be also to her husband, according to that one sheet that tells us back on Daf Yomi base. All right, we'll pick him here from the Mishnah tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.